Okay, Saturday morning, sun is shining. Things could be worse. That's interesting. Hello, good morning, everybody. I know I'm not as fun as music. I mean, I will sing. I sing quite often on the podcast. I was singing along Duran earlier. Do. That's not Simon Le Bon. That's Colin. Simon Le Colin. Why would they have done that? Misprint, maybe?
Thank you for your patience. We're figuring it out. I thought it's not here. Oh, there we go. We can hear you now, I think.
We got it?
Hold on. Thank you for your patience. We're figuring it out. Okay, we're good now.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So we got the sound glitches fixed. We talked about the housekeeping rules. So let's just...
Well, they missed everything. So we have to start over.
Okay. Any audio or technical problems, let us know right away and we'll fix it. We get right on top of that. And thank you for your patience. It is a new studio. It used to just be Brandy with a camera downstairs and me yelling. Now we have microphones and cameras and proper backgrounds and all kinds of good stuff. So thank you for your patience. They'll just get better and better. They always do. Plus, you got Brandy and I. What else do you need? Any questions regarding any kind of comprehension? I'm not explaining myself. Please interrupt, and I will do my best to make sure that you're back up to pace. But any personal questions, what you use, what you have used in the past, what you want to use going forward, let's keep them till the end, just so we don't interrupt the flow. There's always time for Q&A. So, and of course, I have my notes, which is just the PowerPoint that Brandy will be showing throughout, but I got lots of things to show. So let's just jump right in. Okay, so when we talk about soil, what are we talking about? A lot of times when I see people buy those bags of ProMix or Miracle Grow, and they say it's soil. Technically, it is not. It is a growing medium, and quite often it is peat moss, and there'll be some perlite in there and some fertilizer, maybe a wetting agent, a coconut coir or something, but it's technically not a soil. So soil is an essential component of life on our planet. All the plants grow in it. Well, not all. Some, epiphytical. Some grow on trees. Some grow under the ocean. But the vast majority of plants, as we know it, grow in soil. Soil produces food. It filters air, filters water, catches contaminants from both air and water. It sequesters carbon, reduces and mitigates flooding, and it's fun to play with. I've had a blast this morning. I decided to wear a white shirt, well, partially white, and then I've been carrying soil around and filling up little pots with soil so I could show them. And it's great. It's a lot of fun. Making soil mixes is so much fun. So we're going to get through real quick what exactly soil is, just so that we all know what we're talking about. And then, bam, we're into amendments, because we know that's what you guys are here for. We want to talk about what we need for our garden. So if we look at soil, did you like my pun there? Soil is deep and has layers.
Okay, Shrek.
Yeah. But it is. Soil is deep and has layers. So the top layer of soil is the organic layer or the humus. And that's where, again, let's go to a forest. Let's all think about a forest. When you look at that top layer of soil in the forest, the one that's got bits of leaves and branches in it, and you dig around and it's rich and it's earthy and it's got that beautiful forest smell, that is where all the composting organic matter is taking place. And it's probably the richest soil of all. Right below that is the topsoil, and that's the linchpin. It's the engine room. If you think of topsoil as the engine and you think of the organic layer as the gasoline, that's where our plants are thriving. That's the zone to drive us forward. Below that, we have the elevation level, not elevation, elevation layer. That's the drainage and the filter. Elevation simply means particles passing through soil, through water. And that's where a lot of stuff gets leached down to. You've heard us talk about that rain and water and what have you will leach the elements out of the soil where we've mixed them in. Then we have the subsoil, water storage and nutrients. So your big, huge 40-foot, 60-foot mature trees, that's where their roots are hitting. And that's where they'll find big pockets of water. So if you think about it, when it rains, all of the ground gets wet, but then it channels and we have standing areas of water. And then it goes under, soaks into the soil, then it gets through the soil and it starts finding channels. And in that subsoil, there's large areas that are going to hold water, and that's where it's going to get to. And then you've got the parent and the bedrock. The bedrock is just solid rock, literally like the foundation of the area you live in. The parent rock it's got more cracks in it. Some roots will even make it down to that. It holds it. So basically, those are the layers of soil. Now, the only two we need concern ourselves with are the only two that we can really affect, and that is the organic layer and topsoil. So when we think about that, we certainly can't change the bedrock or the parent rock. Forget about that. Even the elevation, if you went down that deep to start messing with that, there's no point. There's no point. You're not going to do anything. What are you going to change it with? Topsoil? It'll just balance itself out again. That's how it works. And these layers, they're not like layers in a cake. They're very distinct. You cut a cake and you can go, ooh, pink, chocolate, vanilla, pink, strawberry, chocolate. I went with one color and two flavors. But you can very clearly see the layers. They're not like that. There is absolute bleeding. So the organic layer on the top is just pure organics. It's leaves, it's branches, it's pieces of moss. You scrape down and that turns into this beautiful organic soil that's mixing into the topsoil. Then you go through that. So all of these layers, there's degrees, they're blending into each other. So we only amend the top two layers. The organic layer, where we're going to basically we're going to simulate that with our amendments. The topsoil is going to end up being rich because of everything pulling down into it, and then the rest of it we don't care about. So that's our playground, if you will. That's where we're growing our plants. Between plants growing, so the plants that come up, especially production plants, high production plants, your tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, they are going to take every nutrient available to them because they have a lot of things to produce. I mean, you think about what a tomato does in 3 to 5 months. It's nothing short of spectacular. It starts out a tiny seed, and at the end, they're 8 feet tall and giving out pounds and pounds of fruit. It can't get there without the right nutrition. It can't get there. It has a very heavy diet. Like an athlete in their prime working out, they have a high caloric intake because they're just burning it. Same with your tomatoes. So that's why we want to do this. And a healthy living soil supports life. Not only the plant, but it supports life underground. It supports the nematodes and the bacteria and the microorganisms and the earthworms. All of those are essential for your soil doing what it's doing. And a healthy soil, a soil that's never amended and it's turned into clay or it's just dust, there's nothing living in that. Think about like deserts, okay? Compare the desert to the jungle, okay? The desert is pretty barren. There's very little that lives in it. What does live in it is very hard and very, very specifically designed. You go to the jungles, the rainforest, thousands of bird species, bizarre animals, bizarre bugs, because there's more ability to sustain more diverse life. And that's what we're looking at. And another thing, and I'm talking about this a lot this year because I know a lot of you guys are, a lot of the city of Calgary are, a rich soil helps water conservation. So you have a very healthy soil. You ever watered a very heavy clay soil? And the water just kind of sits on the top and slowly percolates in. It's not great. Or a really dusty, poor soil, and the water just disappears and the soil is still dry. A healthy soil with proper amendments and Go into the forest, even in the height of the summer, when you're in a shady area and you feel that soil, it still almost feels damp because there's activity, there's things happening. So that's what we're looking at. We want that damp soil to grab any moisture it can and hold on to it for as long as it can so the plants can feed it. Okay, that's soil in a nutshell. So now we're talking about amending our soil, okay? And when we say that, what is an amendment? What are amendments? Like, what does that even mean? Because I hear people say soil amelioration, bettering the soil, additives, all kinds of different words that mean the same thing, okay? Anything we are adding to the soil to increase or improve texture, structure, porosity, the body of it, whatever is going to make that soil healthy and rejuvenated is an amendment. And there are a number of different choices. I only brought up the big hitters today. I'm not getting into the obscure ones, but there's a place for everything. Typically, people add them in the spring prior to growing. I'm going to touch a little bit on that later on. But the springtime, and we know this just from the mass numbers of people we see and how much soil we go through, we know when people are putting soil in, and that's the right thing to do. Absolutely. Ideally, you should add it again, though. And again, I've got a whole thing. I'll talk about this later, but it should be added mid-season. Again, by July, you may have already been watering for 2.5 months. The plants have been rapidly growing. They're leaching everything out. The plants are pulling it up. The rain and the water is pulling it down, and that level is not becoming good again. Have you ever gone out mid-season and your soil is kind of compacted and flat and it doesn't look as good as it did a couple of months ago? There's a reason for that. Healthy soil is as important as light, water, and CO2. Okay, and I mean that, like, your plant needs sunlight. It needs all of those factors to grow. It needs those factors to photosynthesize. I've said it before, and I will say it forever. And every expert I've talked to in the field, I've never had one disagree with this point. We're all on the same page, which is pretty rare. If you had to choose between fertilizer or a healthy living soil, everybody takes healthy living soil. But again, it's not that it's not even close. Not one person I've ever spoke to has said fertilizer. It's always about the soil. And real quick reason for that, the way I like to think of it, is if you think about fertilizer as a supplement, okay, so we run busy lives. It's spring in a garden center. Brandy and I are just go, go, go. We've been here early this morning, setting up, doing a bunch of stuff. And sometimes we can skip meals unless you count 3 fig Newtons a meal. Sometimes we can skip meals, not take care of ourselves, drink too much coffee. So yeah, you know what? Maybe you go, I'm going to take a vitamin C supplement. I'm going to take a calcium supplement. That's fertilizer. Fertilizer is almost supplemental. It is hella important. I am not knocking fertilizer. Here's the other thing. I don't have to choose. I do both. I do both religiously. I amend my soil and I fertilize every single time. Manufacturer's direction, the one I use is once a week. But whenever the manufacturer tells me to put it down, that's what I do. So the soil is the meat and potatoes, if you will. It's the base of a healthy life. And then your fertilizer are all your supplements, your fresh fruit, making sure you get that goodness and keeping the levels up. So I pick both, but I'm telling you right now, a healthy soil is the most important foundational thing you can do in your garden. So one of the most common amendments, anybody here who is brand new to gardening, you might not recognize all of these, but I would be amazed if you hadn't heard of at least 2 or 3 of them. Anybody who's gardened for a couple of years, you've probably heard of all of them. Might be 1 or 2 that you haven't heard of. The most common ones, and I'm talking about ones that people talk about, I'm talking literally about sales figures that we've seen, that we've experienced, and we go, yep, that one is ridiculously popular. These are the most common ones. And they're in no discernible order. I just want to make that abundantly clear. I put these in order because I put them kind of like to like. So I could do some comparisons. You'll see that in a second. compost and manure, peat moss and cocoa coir, worm castings, rock mineral. And I said rock mineral because there's glacial rock mineral, there's volcanic rock mineral. I prefer volcanic, but again, I'm not gonna start splitting things. With everything, there's a number. We might all like coffee. Some might like a blonde roast. Some might like a dark roast. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's a coffee. Rock mineral, dolomitic lime, and last but in no means least, aluminum sulfate. So those are the common ones. Those are the ones that people do. You know, I really don't like this slide that I did on the PowerPoint.
Which one?
The manure versus compost. I couldn't figure out a better way to do it. I'm not happy with it. I forgot about it. And now I just saw it again.
Oh, no.
And yeah. Well, that's what we got. We work with the tools we're given. So a lot of times people will say, should I put in manure? Should I put in compost? I frequently put in both. If I do pick, I nearly always pick compost, not manure. Personal choice. Here's some of the reasons. So manure is decomposed animal waste. That can be cow, there's chicken manure as well. That can be horse. Tends to be very nitrogen rich. If you plant in pure manure, you have a very good chance of burning those baby roots. So you really got to amend it. But it has a much higher concentration of microbacteria and microorganisms in it just because of its base structure. And don't get me wrong, it's when I say decomposed animal waste, I'm going to go back to that point for a second. A proper manure has no significant odor. If it has an odor, it hasn't been composted properly. It is not manure as in somebody's following a horse around until it poops. It is the manure that's gathered out of the fields or the stables, and it is being composted. So it is one type of product, in this case manure, that is composted down to turn back into earth. Because I know a lot of people go, I'm not going to use manure because it's icky, it's gross, it's going to smell. If it smells, you have a problem with the manure. It improves soil nutrition. Again, being so rich, it really, really brings those nutrients up. Supports vigorous growth. Used properly, that growth, those micros, really gets things supercharged, and it really supports soil structure. And what I mean by soil structure is the binding and the aggregates of the soil, and manure is really good for that. So if you have a very old, dusty soil, manure might be the way to go for that one. Compost. So compost is generally decomposed plant material, green compost. We all have a green bin at home. Now, in our green bins, I would say, I'm not the regular person, but I'd say a regular family, 95% of what's going in the compost bin, maybe 90%, is plant-based. And then the rest of it will be eggshells, maybe bones if you've had a steak or something. But probably even higher than 90%. The vast majority of stuff are things we clean out of our yard. The vegetable clippings when we're making supper, paper towel, which is wood, obviously. So everything is plant-based. That's what's going in there. So vast majority of composts are a decomposed plant material. Therefore, they're more balanced for the garden. Where the manure is very high, compost tends to be more balanced, more gentle, if you will. Better water retention. Compost, I've read reports. Now, I can't prove this. I don't have the facilities to do my own testing, but I have read reports that compost can retain 30% more water than manure. Again, I'm telling you what I've read. I've read it in a few sources. I read credible sources. I'm not on johnnygardenerblog.com. If Johnny Gardener blog exists, I am not knocking you. I just thought of that the moment it left my... No, my luck, that blog exists. If you exist, Johnny Gardener, you're awesome. Maybe. I haven't read your blog. I'm going to stop now. We're just going to keep going. Again, it improves soil nutrition, much like manure, because of everything it's bringing in. Compost is lighter. It's fluffier if you've ever compared the two, and I'm going to show you them in a second. So it helps from soil compaction. Manure, again, is heavier, soil structure, so it's not as good for soil compaction. Compost also feeds the naturally occurring bacteria. And here's the best part, is they look almost identical. So you don't even have to worry about, like, is it an aesthetic choice? So I'm going to bring these up to the camera. The first one I'm going to show you guys is steer manure.
Okay, hold on just 1 second. I'm going to try to add in this extra camera so that we can do it.
We got 2 cameras. See, these are the technical things we were talking.
Okay, ready?
Ready?
Let's see.
Okay, so that's steer. This is what happens when we have new technology.
You're going to have to use this camera.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
It's totally the camera. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, yeah.
To make sure that we actually have the... Yeah, okay, we're back. It was the second camera that was the audio issue.
So this is the steer manure we have here, and I'm just going to come around to here.
Yeah.
I'll bring it closer to the camera. So you can see it's dark. Oops, I dropped some. Like I said, we're not going to be afraid to make a mess in here. If I clump it, so if I pinch it, you can see that it formed an aggregate in my hand. So it builds the soil texture. I'm probably not showing this on camera. You have to remember, I don't have a screen behind me, everybody. I'm good? All right, thanks, Brandy. I've realized I'm moving it all over. I'm grabbing it down here, and it smells like earth. I'm getting notes of earth. Cattle. No, there's no notes of cattle. It's honestly just earth. And now I'll show you compost. So the compost is lighter, okay? It doesn't clump as easily. So when I squish it together and I let go, it just falls apart again. That's what I was saying about it being area. And again, no fragrance, okay? It smells like earth. Again, your compost and your manure should not have a fragrance. They are not rotting materials. They are decomposing materials. That's the difference. Okay, so that's both manure and compost. Again, I've used both. I like both. Compost is normally my go-to. Again, it suits what I need. I don't need to really massively increase my soil structure. I don't really need that high concentration of nitrogen, general NPK, because I also fertilize. So compost is a bit more suitable for me. You can use both together, or you can use one or the other. You can't really go wrong. Again, you can't really go wrong with any of these. Okay, now we have peat moss versus coco coir. So I'll go through and then I'll come back to the camera and maybe I'll figure out where the camera is so I'm not moving them all over the place. Peat moss, I think compost is probably the most well-known amendment. I think when we're kids, I think we know what compost is. We've heard of it, and now we have compost bins in our house. So we understand what compost is. We get the process of it. Manure, I think people have an idea, but a lot of people don't understand that it's composted manure or composted animal waste. So hopefully that cleared it up. But then I'd say the second most common amendment that people know is peat moss. Peat moss has been used for, oh my God, centuries. For the longest time since they discovered it. It aerates the soil. It's sterile because of where it's formed in peat bogs. It's a natural acidifier that can be beneficial to the plants. Certain plants love acidifier. Has great moisture retention. But it's a little controversial. And the reason it's controversial is peat takes a long time to form in peat bogs. And I'm not going into this. I stay away from controversial subjects. The process of this is not to make people feel bad. It is to be fully educational, and that's where I draw the line. But every time I speak about peat moss to people, I'd say 1 in 5 maybe have this question. So in England right now, you cannot use peat moss anymore. I'm fairly certain they've made it illegal to buy it because they're dredging peat bogs to get this stuff that's taken hundreds, thousands of years to form, and the release of carbon from doing that is causing a big problem. And peat bogs are an amazing carbon sink well. They pull carbon in. They're essential. And that's why a lot of people are on the fence. It is amazing for the garden, but they don't like where it comes from. And that's the controversy. Now, that being said, if that's your jam, we sell it. The people that we have, they tell us they do it sustainably. With all the government checks, I kind of got to believe them, but I don't know. I haven't been there myself. So I just want to address that elephant in the room. And now we've got coco coir, which is my favorite. I use coco coir. It aerates the soil exactly like peat moss. It's pH neutral, so there's no acidifier. So I can set that and control my own acidity, my own pH balance. It has better moisture retention than peat moss. It's incredible. I used this new coco coir we got, this one here, for the first time last year. I was blown away. When I watered my garden, oh my God, I just kept watering. So I wanted to see how long it would take for water to pool, and just kept pulling it in. I was probably the best coir, I've ever used. Coir is sustainable. It's literally crushed up coconut husks. Obviously, there's a bigger process than that. They soak them, and then they shred them, and then they separate them, and then they break down the fibers. But essentially, it's smashed up coconut husks. It can be more expensive. That's the downplay of that. So not everything is perfect, right? People, they need more bang for their buck. You got peat moss. People who are like, well, I want to stay away from that controversy. You've got coir. So I'm not, again, no criticism. I just tell you what I use. And the main reason I use coir, again, is for the acidifiers. So this is peat moss.
1 second. Okay.
This is peat moss. There's no real odor. It doesn't really clump. See if I can clump it. The moment I drop it, it just starts breaking apart. An earthy, kind of damp odor to it, which is great. It's damp, not as in like damp in your basement where you're like, oh God, I have a problem. Damp as in damp in the garden where you're like, oh hell yeah, it smells like spring. That's what the peat moss smells like. Good stuff. And this peat moss has been on our shelf now for, I don't know, probably a month or so, and it still hasn't completely dried out. So that's pretty awesome. And then this is coir. So you can see coir is a lot more fine. I love the color of it. Yep. There you go. Brandy can do it. So thank you for your help. Thank you for the assistance. I'm back here and I
know, I was like, I did this might help it.
Yeah. So, and you can see it doesn't clump at all. Like, I can't get that to clump. It just literally falls apart. A very mild fragrance. You want to do the smell test?
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah. I love coir. An incredible moisture retention. So coir is my jam. I have no problem. And this brick here, this one here, is definitely more affordable than the bale. The bale is my favorite. It's ready. You open up the bale, you put it in your garden, you're good to go. This is dehydrated and compressed, so you need to put it in a wheelbarrow or a bin, fill it with water, soak it, let it expand, break it up. I've used both. I use the bale now because I'm a lazy man, and I don't have to do any extra work. So, and the other thing I like about this as well, actually, is I just saw when I was downstairs gathering stuff, there was a young couple in, and they grabbed this one, and I overheard I don't think they know I worked here. I'm certainly not wearing anything that demonstrates I'm Golden Acre, and they were like, grab that one, it's easier to carry.
Oh.
Yep. So I don't know if they were on the bus. I don't know what they were doing. Yeah. But they took this one because it was easier to haul than one of the big colossal bales you've got to carry on your shoulder.
Yeah, less weight too. Like,
yep.
Those bales can get heavy.
No, you still have to wait at the same time.
No, stop.
Sorry. And now My ultimate favorite. I should have saved it till last, but I wasn't thinking like that. As I said, that last slide with the manure compost really upset me, so I wasn't thinking straight after that. Worm castings, literally the best. As far as I'm concerned, and again, you'll hear different opinions, but these, I believe, are the gold standard of amendments. You can use them in house plants, raised planters, vegetable, flowers. It does not matter. Everything will benefit from them. And yes, it's essentially worm poop. I wanted to start with that salient point because I get asked a lot of times by people who are like, so what exactly are worm castings? And you know they know, but they're not sure if they should know. And then people are probably thinking, well, is somebody following behind the worms with like a tiny little poop bag? Picking it? They've actually got huge bins filled with red wigglers, and they just dump everything in. They dump in old vegetable things. There's soil, obviously, for them to live in. I found this out from our friends at Annalita.
Yeah.
Do you know what the number one favorite food source is? They go nuts for it, of red wigglers.
Oh, see, I already know the answer because this is one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
It's cardboard.
It's cardboard. Like, what the
They
heck?
just
Like,
wet the cardboard, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they throw it in and it's damp and it sits there with everything else. And apparently they destroy. Even seeing it, I still like.
Yeah.
Weird
Yeah,
worms.
it's really cool.
Worm castings have an extremely high humic and folic acid. Humic helps regulate CO2 use, not in the air, in the plant. So the plants intake CO2 for photosynthesis. Humic acids help the plant get that to where it needs to go and regulate the contents. And the humic layer can also, the organic layer, that we were talking about, can also be called the humic layer. Just so you know, so that's how important it is. Worm castings, they help break clay. They bind loose soil. So they do both. You've got a soil that's too compact because it's clay. It's like, we'll take care of that. And you're like, oh, but now my soil's too loose. They're like, we got that too. Like whatever you need, we got you covered. Water retention. And like these, they're so fine. I'll show you in a second. The water they absorb is insane. The nutrition they hold. So when you fertilize, instead of your fertilizer running down, they pull it in and they hold it until the plant can get to it. They're super rich in micronutrients, magnesium, calcium, sulfur, zinc, copper, more, but that's all I had room for on the slide. And they bolster disease resistance. So they can actually help with the folic acids and the micronutrients and everything else. They can actually help your plants fight off. Now, they're not going to make them immune. Not at all. Do not make that the salient point here. It's just another tool in the toolbox to fight off the various fungal diseases. I'll bring this around. I will give it.
I'm just going to remove this. So
I will give it to Brandy. So these are worm castings, and you can see just how fine they are. Like, unbelievably fine. They're like almost like coffee grounds.
Yeah, actually.
And zero odor.
Let's smell worm poop
Yeah,
today.
zero odor.
There's absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
It's one of my faves.
Yeah. And they feel nice to use. I've always known about worm castings. I used them, but they used to be hella expensive. And now, because of technology and the way things progress, the price has come down. There's zero barrier for entry with using worm castings. I cannot recommend them enough. And they won't go bad. Whatever you don't use in your garden, put in your houseplants. Rock mineral. So this one, I'm not going to lift out and do it because it is literally dust. And it's, so be careful with this one, Brandy. You don't want to inhale that.
I just want to see if I can like
yeah.
So it kind of looks like drywall dust. Yeah.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It's almost got the consistency as well. Yeah. Of I was about to tap it. You know how like flour feels clumpy, but it's not?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a flour. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the consistency of it. Now, I use this. The reason I'm not doing it in here is that there's no ventilation. There's no cross breeze, and it's a rock dust. I don't particularly want to breathe that in. So just if you're using this, word to the wise, just be safe. Use it in a well-ventilated area and don't put your face this close to it when you're using it. So when I mix it into my soil, I throw it down. The wind's got a crosswind. It doesn't get into my face. I've had zero issues using it, but it's a rock dust. You don't want to be getting that in your sinuses or in your lungs. Okay, so why would I give you that warning on something and be like, oh, yeah, I still think you should use it? Because it kicks ass. Can I say that on a webinar? Well, okay. Yeah, there's no bleep on this.
There's no dust back from this one.
It is phenomenal stuff. And this one here, the one that I have here, use any of them. The one I have here, it comes from BC. It comes from the volcanoes in BC, part of the Ring of Fire around the Pacific. It comes from there. And it is actually pulverized and crushed just outside of Calgary in, what's the name of the town east of Calgary? Strathmore. Mm-hmm. It's done just outside of Strathmore and then shipped. It's 100% organic and it is phenomenal. So this is most rock dusts and glacier dust. I'm not obviously doing an advert for this because not everybody will be able to get this. So glacier dusts, volcanic dusts, whatever. They can contain 63 plus minerals and trace elements, including oxygen, including silicon, aluminum, potassium. The list goes, there's 63 of them. Okay, so really just pick which one you want and it's probably in there. Organic and natural. Sustainable. You've seen the size of a volcanic mountain and the size of this bag. What I always like to say to people is, when you think of a volcanic island such as Hawaii, do you think of it as a barren wasteland or a lush tropical paradise? Most people think the latter because that's what it is, and it is volcanic rock. So it clearly, nature is like, here's one I made earlier, and shows a little picture of Hawaii. It promotes growth with all of those micronutrients. The reason they pulverize it so fine is so that it's very, very easy for it to break down in the water so the plant can pull it up. It enhances color of flowers and fruits. It enhances taste, and it boosts the overall health and resistance of the plant. It's phenomenal. That and worm castings are my two must-add. I can go with coir, I can go with peat, I can go with compost, I can go with manure, I can go with combinations thereof. Those are my two that I have. That's why they got their own separate one. There's nothing to compare them to. They are standouts. Again, you do not have to add them. You absolutely do not, but they are huge in their benefit. Now we have dolomitic lime and aluminum sulfate, which are massively popular, but I don't think people know exactly why they are. And I'm not trying to be facetious. So I included this at the end, but I'm just going to jump straight to it. Dolomitic lime will not help you grow grass under a spruce tree. It won't. Just will not. Like, take that to the bank. Believe me, if it did, I would tell you it did, because then I would have a better chance of selling more. But I'm not here to try and sell more dolomitic lime. I'm here to try and help you guys make the correct decisions for your garden. And the correct thing is, it will not help you. Put down 8 bags of it. You're not going to hurt anything other than your wallet, and you still won't get lawn. So that is not its purpose. Okay, so please, 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 anybody who tells you that your lawn isn't growing under a spruce, we're not talking about lawns, but I do have to address that now really quick. Because of the shade and the moisture robbery from the spruce are the two main reasons why lawn doesn't grow there. You can go with some natural perennials. Ferns can do pretty good under there. Solomon seal, lily of the valley. Woodruff can do okay because they can take a dense shade, and they're a natural forest growing plant. So they kind of have adapted to that environment, or change the aesthetic, cut a circle around it, put an edge in, and put some mulch down or some decorative rock or something. But or work constantly on your grass and get lawn, but don't think dolomitic lime is going to get you there, because it won't. So dolomitic lime and aluminum sulfate are two sides of the same coin. Dolomitic lime neutralizes acid, aluminum sulfate acidifies. Main reason for using these is adjusting the pH of your soil. So most plants thrive in pH 6 to 7.4, which is the neutral and slightly acidic. That's where your plants are going to thrive. So that's why you do a soil pH test. We've got them. I should have grabbed one, but they're small little kits. There's tons of different types. Nearly any independent garden center is going to have them. So wherever you shop, whichever independent garden center is your jam, hopefully us, but if not us, please go independent. Do a pH test, figure out roughly where your pH is, and then utilize these. I can't tell you how much to use because I don't know what your pH is. I don't know what your square footage is. But if you look on the back, they have pretty much done all of the math, how to use, blah, blah, blah. But now here's the other stuff. Here's the other fun stuff. An extra shot of aluminum sulfate is going to help your acid lovers, your blueberries, your begonias. I think I've got a begonia right there. Begonia. I love begonias. And hydrangeas. Now, I hear people all the time say, oh, if I put aluminum nails in the hydrangea, it'll help it change color, or I'll put down aluminum foil. It's kind of in the wheelhouse, but you're kind of far away. You're in the door of the wheelhouse. There's a long way to go. The aluminum is correct, but it's aluminum sulfate you need. Aluminum foil, we wouldn't wrap our food in it if it leached aluminum into everything. And the aluminum nails are so small. Plus, do you really want to scatter nails around your garden? So use these. These will help change your hydrangea color. So sulfate goes blue, lime goes pink. There's no easy way to remember that. I wish there was. I wish it was like limes were pink. And you'd be like, what? But limes are not pink. So, but that's how you do it. And that's the purpose of them, is to help adjust your pH balance for overall plant health. There are other purposes people use them for, but I have to touch on that because I think people might be buying it for the wrong thing. And that's what we're trying to stop people doing. How do I amend? Okay, not me personally, that's more of a general question, the royal eye. Select the amendments that are right for you based on personal choice, the advice you've got, your plant needs, your pH testing, whatever. However you get there, pick the ones that are right for you. Maybe you pick it because it's easy to carry. Maybe you take worm castings because you're like, I'm going to check to see if what this guy's saying is on the money. Whatever you take, it's the right ones for you. Just get that stuff into your soil. That's all we're asking. So you start off by cleaning the debris from your beds. What I mean by that is garbage over the winter, big branches, wet leaves that have all stuck together now. Start by cleaning your beds first. Scatter at the preferred rate. If you have mulch, pull the mulch back. You don't want to put your amendments on the mulch because we don't want to turn mulch in. Pull the mulch back. You're going to amend. You're going to push the mulch forward again. Using a fork, a cultivator, a hoe, or a spade, work the amendments into the top 2 to 4 inches. Remember, it's going to get pulled down. So if you're spading it in this deep, you're not really, I mean, look at the plants that we're planting here. Okay, if I put my amendments to here, all of this rootstock is getting the amendments, and then as they pull down, all of the roots will get it. Plus, like I said, I'm going to talk about this. I amend twice a year. Okay, firm the soil down when you're done. When you've amended and you've lifted all the soil and it's all floofy, I like to do what I call the duck walk, and I just keep my heels together and I walk like this. Okay.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. And
I should go talk to your neighbors.
The best is when I worked for the city of St. John and I was doing that in city beds.
Oh, cute.
Because what can happen is you floof up all the soil and you turn it and you leave it, and now it's uneven, and then you plant and there can be air pockets beneath and you plant sink when you water. So I'm not compacting, I'm not putting weight, I'm literally just lightly, and all I'm doing is just firming it down, making sure it's there. And then I'm going to take either my small cultivator or an earth rake, and I'm just going to level it out. Still lots of gas exchange, still lots of aggregates, no compaction, but now it's nice and firm. Please be careful around any existing plants. How am I doing for time? Any existing roots. We're late to start, so we're doing okay. I see people all the time take their cultivator and they go next to a perennial and they're going, rip. And you're like, ugh, it's like nails on a chalkboard. So it's good to have this in my hand, actually. Now I feel like more scholarly. You can stay there. Okay, when to amend? Spring, already talked about that. Right before, some people do it the same day they're planting, others do it the week prior. Some people are looking for an excuse to get in the garden now. It's too early to plant, but they want to get out there. They want to be in the air. They want to be in the sunshine. They want to do something. Get out there and amend. Okay, saving you a job down the road. You can get out and get it done. No hard surprises on planting day. Closer you can do to planting, I guess a little better, less leaching, but there's going to be so little leaching between then and now. You should be fine. I like to do mine the day I plant. I try and get everything done, but I have a lot of experience. I know I've got enough time to do it. Not everybody does, so maybe it's the weekend. You amend on the Saturday, you plant on the Sunday. Do what's right for you. But if you think about it, it's like giving your plant a fresh meal. So you're taking this plant and it's going and you're like, boom, there you go. I'm taking you from this soil. I'm putting you in this soil. It's rich. It's healthy. It's awesome. The looser soil is going to be advantageous to those gentle little roots that have, these plants are being grown in like a greenhouse. They've never experienced the real world before. And now we're going to throw them out the nest. It's time to sink or swim, big guy. And we want them to have the best chance to survive as possible. So we want to make that ground as comfortable as possible. I like to amend in the summer, and I already said why. The rain comes down, we top water, we do everything, our soil is compacted. All that rain and watering has pulled the soil, the nutrients down. Okay, remember at the beginning, the evolution layer, all that stuff is running away. The roots aren't getting deep enough. The roots of your tomatoes and some of your perennials are not getting down to that layer at all. So your plants are like, hey, we got this great meal at the beginning, but I'm kind of hungry now. And a lot of us just fertilize. Hit it up with another amendment. It will absolutely help. It'll help prolong those blooms. In the summer, when it's hot as hell, moisture retention, we said that right at the beginning. So putting this in will help you preserve moisture in July and August when you water and an hour later your beds are dry again. So really get that in there. You don't have to. Again, none of this is written in stone. It's advice and it's help to get you there. Okay, tips and tricks. Healthy soil is better than any fertilizer. The best is the two combined because, like I said, things like the worm castings, they actually hold nutrition. Cocoa coir holds moisture. So you're using a water soluble and you've got coir and worm castings mixed in. You're really locking all of that nutrients to the plant. Amend by hand, not tilling. Tilling, it's very convenient, and when you're done, the soil looks great, but it's not a great process. You rip apart all the microaggregates. The damage you do by ripping that soil up isn't awesome. Now, you have an area and it's heavy clay and it's a nightmare to turn. It's never been amended. You just moved into a place, whatever the case might be. Yes, of course, you can do it once the first time, much like I think anybody who's followed any of these knows how I feel about chemical sprays. You don't go out and spray one dandelion, but if you have an infestation of something, yes, that's when it is to be used for. You have a bed that you cannot possibly do by hand. The soil is that bad, bust out the tiller. But after that, if you're amending it, you will never need to till again. I've never tilled my property. I do them all by hand because I'm a colossal nerd. I don't like tillers. So regardless, I'll make myself do it. But my soil is so loose now, I don't need to. I very easily get all of my amendments in. When amending soil for large planting, trees, shrubs, and transplants, use a 50-50 to a 70-30 mix. What I mean by that, real quick, the soil you dig out of the hole, okay, don't get rid of that and only put in amendments. I see people do that. They put in peat moss, coir, compost, and they make this super rich blend. You want to leave some of the existing soil, some of that existing topsoil. You want it right there because when the roots get through your amendments, that's the soil they're hitting. You want them used to that resistance. You want them used to that type of soil so it's not a shock for them. It absolutely massively benefits the roots and the overall growth. You can't really overdo it on amendments, but you're wasting money. Okay, I see some people put it down. I'm like, holy hell, how much are you putting in that area? And they're like, oh, it's great. The plant can only uptake so much and the rest will run away. So you don't want to overdo it. As long as you're getting your soil to that healthy, dark brown, black earth looking soil that when you water, the water is sucked in and held there, that's the right amount. You don't have to be excessive. Only amount the top 2 to 4 inches. We already talked about that, unless you're doing a large planting. So when you're doing your tree and you got to dig down this deep, you're not only adding this much amended soil, you're amending all the way down. Okay, that's all roots. It's a big purchase. It is a purchase that is going to last generations. It's a generational purchase. Let's get it going the right way right off the bat and have fun. Try new things and let the kids help. Okay, there's nothing kids love more than amending soil. I have gardened with kids in every aspect. I'll tell you each end of the spectrum. Playing in the soil, as in throwing manure everywhere and laughing because it's horse poop, ha ha ha, and throwing it and getting dirty and working it in. And there's nothing in the bed, so they can run through them and you don't have to worry about your plants. They love it. Weeding, not so much. Okay, so if you want to get your kids out there with you and you want to get them interested, and if it's pretty much a bare area, it's your veggie garden and there's no veggies in there, the kids can't make a mistake, so you don't have to be worried about it. Let them put it down. You can always take a rake. Oops, they dropped the whole bag in one area. Spread it out with a rake. You're good to go. So get those kids out there. Get them helping you. It's a lot of fun. I want to say a huge thank you. You bear with us while we're doing some technical things. We are going to get a second camera working. Like I said, we got a few glitches. That's my little earthworm thank you to you all. It's not mine. As mine, I mean, I stole it from open source Google. But it is my thank you. And do we have any questions?
Okay, well, first of all, I just kind of want to go through your little workstation here just to confirm what we have on here, just in case anybody is interested. So starting from left to right, so this is the worm castings. We have this in stores by Annalita. Next to it is the dolomitic lime. CIL comes out with the dolomitic lime and the aluminum sulfate. So this was what Colin was talking about earlier. Up here, this is what the volcanic rock mineral looks like. So if you're coming in the store looking for that, look for this bag. And then what Colin was referencing before, the cocoa coir, the cocoa peat. This is cocoa peat or coconut?
Cocoa peat, cocoa coir, they're basically the same.
Okay, so that's what we were looking at before. So it's sort of like a cube of compressed cocoa peat. And then this is the peat moss by a company called Pots and Plants. So this was what he was showing you earlier. Now
we do have the peat moss also in the massive bales that you see, but I was not bringing one of them upstairs. And then I'll help you out, Brandy. You don't have to lift these ones.
Yeah. So
that's our compost.
Yeah.
This is a green compost, only plant material. The other ridiculously popular one is sea soil. Sea soil is probably the best compost out there. However, it is not a green compost. It is forest fines and fish guts. It is phenomenal. It is absolute. It's our biggest seller. So that is also another compost. And then we have the steer manure. And like I said, you can tell it doesn't smell. We're in an enclosed room. We're in a studio. Here, this bag is open and there is no horrible smell in here.
Yeah. Like
so
I'm actually shocked we can't smell anything.
Yeah. So that's because it's been properly composted and it's been broken down and dealt with properly. So yeah, great idea, Brandon. Yeah. Great run through. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, I want to just give a shout out to Eagle Lake Landscape Supply who tuned in this morning.
Hey, good morning, Eagle Lake.
It said Toon Army. I don't know what that means.
It's a reference to the Newcastle jersey I'm wearing.
Okay, well, on that same wavelength, Maiko also joined in over on our website, goldenacre.ca, and said, I'm not sure which amendment is my favorite, but I can say for sure Newcastle rocks.
Okay, well, I love that. Okay, well, that just... Well, this seminar's done.
I know.
I got everything I needed.
So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat, and then we'll get going and we can answer those for you. I think my biggest thing was just like learning more about the different kinds of amendments, because I've always been really scared to venture into it, because like, what if you make a wrong decision? What if you get something that you're not really, is not good for your garden or for your specific needs? My biggest question was probably, I was definitely that person that used an entire bag of earthworm casting on her raised gardening beds, thinking I needed to use the whole bag when I should have probably read the back. But
yep.
For storing them over winter, if you don't use an entire bag of amendment, how do you store them?
Good question. Ideally, you want to, it doesn't matter if they freeze.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if they get cold. Doesn't matter if they freeze. So an unheated garage is fine. Try and prevent any moisture from getting into them. Especially, so this one I wouldn't keep outside. This one I put inside. Again, moisture gets into that. It can really make it hard. Probably these two, normally they live in my garage, but they're up on a shelf.
Yeah.
This one actually, a lot of times it's inside because I do use it on my house plants too. But for the rest of them, just kind of make sure the bag is sealed up, put somewhere with all your gardening stuff, and you're good to go. People leave them in their potting sheds all winter.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
nice.
it's not like fertilizer where, no, it's got to be a cool, dry location or it's going to freeze like a rock and then separate.
Yeah.
These are really, the earth, the soil, they can freeze in your garden. And here's something I'll touch on real quick. And I don't do it, but I know some people who do. Some people amend the soil in the autumn.
Yeah.
So after that cleanup, you see them go out and they add the compost. I don't really see the point for two reasons. One, we're going to get snow. The snow is going to compact the soil. I'm still going to have to plant, and I still want to break that soil up. Plus, the snow and then the rain in the spring is going to pull that nutrients deeper than I want it to be. So I still have to turn the soil anyway in the spring. I may as well put my amendments in there and they're fresher. Think of it like this. Would you rather have fries come straight out of the air fryer and onto the table, or would you rather them come straight out of the air fryer, put in a Tupperware, close the Tupperware, put it in a bag, drive half an hour, come out, give them to you, and then you're like, lukewarm, soggy fries, delicious. They're still going to feed you, but they might not be as good.
Yeah.
That's my analogy.
Okay, that's really cool. Danielle Feast over on Instagram asks, for container gardening, do you need to add perlite or something to lighten up the soil?
I don't, you can. I don't really add perlite to my outdoor soils. If it's a raised planter and you have a healthy soil, I've done a whole bunch of soil testing over the years. I'm actually running a soil test in my office right now. We can even take some pictures and show you guys that. And I find perlite, it works good on house plants. It's definitely beneficial there. It's somewhat essential when you're doing like succulent blends and whatnot. Outdoors, I've never really seen a purpose for it. A lot of times in a container garden, as you're watering, it keeps rising to the top and it's not really doing any purpose. So I don't use it. You absolutely can. It will not hurt anything. I personally don't. I think that money would be better spent on an amendment that's actually going to feed your plant and help your plant produce and help with that porosity and drainage without putting in perlite.
Do you have, just kind of going back to your seasonal amendments, do you, and you may have talked about this and I'm so sorry, but do you use different amendments in the spring versus the fall?
In the summer?
Or in the summer?
Oh, okay. Let's touch on all of them. No, I don't. No, whatever. Shouldn't say that. No, I don't, but it depends. Okay. And what I mean by that is, say I check my soil, plants are growing vigorously. I see no 911s. I'm probably not going to check the pH, and I'm probably not going to bother adding either of these. Okay, I already did that in the spring. I know I'm good. I know where my pH balance is. But when it comes to the others, no, coir, volcanic dust, worm castings, all of that's going in.
All of it, just twice a year.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Our friends at Annalita Worm Castings joined into the webinar this morning, which is really cool. It's great to see them.
Yeah,
they're like,
always.
This is great. I was like, I know.
Yeah, you guys are great.
I think that pretty much wraps this up. I don't see any more questions, but obviously there's always ways to reach out, and everybody downstairs is fantastic in that soil amendment department. So
you know what? I'm glad you said that, Brandy, because you're absolutely right. So you guys know Brandy and I as the faces of Golden Acre, and we love it, and we obviously love gardening, and we love talking about it, and we love doing all of that. But it is absolutely true. To use a term, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Okay, there are people downstairs that are, some are aspiring, some are as good as me, and there are a few that are better. Okay, like you can go to some of the staff in Tree Lot, and they'll know more about trees than me. They might not know much about all general gardening, but they know that. There'll be people in Tree Lot who know more about general gardening than me. We truly are much like a healthy soil, We are extremely diverse and we are the sum of our working parts. Everybody pulls together. If it wasn't for everybody downstairs doing an amazing job, and a shout out who never get mentioned, the admin team, the ones that nobody sees, who are up here making sure orders go through and bills get paid and everything is happening. If it wasn't for everybody pulling the correct directions there, we wouldn't be able to do this. So it really is teamwork. So, come on in. If you have a question, ask it. If you don't want to ask somebody on the floor, I get it. Some of us get social anxiety, 100%. Some of us are like, I don't want to be a bother, or I can't remember what I was going to ask. I don't want to come across as not knowing. I get it. I get those feelings too. Okay, I'm not calling anybody out. I go into a store and I can feel intimidated and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm busting out my phone and I'm trying to Google and I'm trying to understand it. I get it. I absolutely do. You can find us. We're not hard to find. You can email us at info@goldenacre. You can find our social media. You can slide right into our DMs. We're happy to see you. Whatever you need, we will answer the question. That's what we're here. I had a guy, he'd seen me on TV, figured I could help him out, and messaged me about the correct way to germinate wild clematis seeds. Okay. His name was Larry. Awesome guy. Larry and I ended up talking on the phone for 15 minutes. Okay. I was happy to help him. So we're not hard to get a hold of. The downstairs staff, reach out through us, virtually, or if you see me on the floor or you see me somewhere downtown. Next week, we're down at the core all week. Come, say hi, ask me questions. Let's have a chat. That's what we're here for. So if there's nothing else, thank you as always to Brandy. If it wasn't for Brandy, this would not be happening. Thank you to everybody watching, for tuning in and making us have a great Saturday. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.